And thanks for being with me. Today I'm going to have a little bit of a conversation with you about Rita Panahi and her moments of conversion, apparently. And this has become brought to my attention by a post that someone sent me, or one of our comments actually, on my YouTube channel, for which I really do appreciate actually, but I'm going to read that through because I need to talk about how people change over time. And that Rita's change, I think, has been quite remarkable given where she came from. So I'm going to talk about that as well. So stay tuned. I'm also going to talk about a video that Rita has here on Rita Panahi's show anyway, and how Rita has a go at Biden, and which he always does, and I don't know why, because Biden's no longer standing in this election. But nevertheless, if he fluffs a line or he says something that he shouldn't have said, or whatever, then I guess it's fair game for the right wing. So Rita's going to do that, and then she talks about in that speech that Biden gives, which you hear about a bit of. He also cites the statement that that Trump made in relation to there are good people on both sides. And I'm going to play that clip as well from Donald Trump so that we can hear in full context what he said and what the journalists were asking him in relation to that. I think it's quite interesting because we do tend to... There's some things that Donald Trump says that, given January the 6th and the riot there, one wonders whether he himself, in the following 3 years, or whatever it was, has actually changed as well. So it's an interesting analysis, I think, of Rita Panahi and her change, and also that of Trump and where he also has changed.
Now it's time for Lefties Losing It, and the DNC lunacy has really kicked into gear. We've even got NBA coach Steve Kerr, take a knee, Kerr. He was there and he had a message for Donald Trump.
In the words of the great Steph Curry, we can tell Donald Trump, night, night.
No. The Warriors coach had a lot more to say than just that. He spoke about why he was there, making a fool of himself.
And that's just crazy shit. He didn't make a fool of himself. I heard the whole speech. It was quite sensible. He's a person who simply supports Kamala Harris because he can't stand Trump, and for logical reasons. But Rita's about to point out to us that that's perhaps not as logical as one might think.
Why he backs the Democrats. He explained what he looks for in a leader.
I believe that leaders must display dignity. I believe that leaders must tell the truth.
Got it. Dignity and truth.
Now, at this particular point, I think it would be really helpful if Rita started to talk a little bit about how undignified Donald Trump is. Trump's behaviour in general is absolutely appalling. Everybody can see it, and everybody, well, not everybody, but most people, even on the right, are now a little bit tired of it. And people generally are turning the other way. They're tuning out to anything that Trump says because it is just absolute garbage. And I find it really disappointing that an intelligent person like Rita Panahi would even occupy any thought of accepting that Donald Trump is a reasonable person to be occupying the White House.
Let's get a dose of that with the leader that Steve Kerr backs right now, Joe Biden, who spoke sometime after Kerr. It was way past his bedtime, and it was a manic, incoherent rant. He told women they had no electrical or electoral power. Try to figure this out.
Women are not without electoral or political power. No kidding.
No kidding. But let's just get back to that dignity thing Steve Kerr was talking about, dignity and truth. And here we see that sort of glorious dignity of Biden repeating verifiable lies to sow racial division. And in doing so, he even invoked the name of his dead son. It's not very dignified in my book.
Why? Who gives a shit whether you think it's dignified or not, Rita? The fact that he cited his son as an inspiration for him to stand in the election. So there's nothing undignified about that whatsoever.
Chanting the same exact anti-Semitic bile that was heard in Germany in the early 30s. Neo-Nazis, white supremacists, the Ku Klux Klan. When the president was asked what he thought had happened, Donald Trump said, and I quote, "There are very fine people on both sides. My God." That's what he said. That is what he said and what he meant. That's when I realized, had to listen to the admonition of my dead son, I could not stay in the sidelines. So I ran.
So dignified, so truthful, so full of joy.
So full of bullshit.
That demented diatribe was, of course, devoid of fact. We told you that years ago. It's all on video. The fine people hoax is just that. Trump did condemn the neo-Nazis and racists unequivocally.
And you had people, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally. But you had many people in that group other than neo-Nazis and white nationalists, okay? And the press has treated them absolutely unfairly.
And yet, years later, the Democrats from Joe Biden down continue to push that dangerous, divisive lie, even after President Trump was almost assassinated.
I don't know what him being assassinated has got to do with it. The point and the fact is that Trump was confronted about this statement because he just could not let it go, that he had to attack the left wing, and he made it equivalent. He made whatever it was happening on the left, he made it equivalent to what was happening on the right, and that was the issue. The issue was that even though he did say, and I agree, he did say that he did call out Nazis and nationalists and that sort of stuff, but we also need to remember that this was the man that told the Proud Boys to stand down and stand by. So, and this is the man also, let's not forget, who on January the 6th decided that it was best to have a riot that would, in an attempt to overthrow a fair and just election. So what does all of this mean? Well, I'm going to play a little bit for you of actually this, the press asking him about this to get some clarification.
I'm not putting anybody on a moral plane. What I'm saying is this. You had a group on one side and you had a group on the other, and they came at each other with clubs, and it was vicious, and it was horrible, and it was a horrible thing to watch. But there is another side. There was a group on this side, you can call them the left, or you've just called them the left, that came violently attacking the other group. So you can say what you want, but that's the way it is.
The problem was that this group on the other side, on the right side, was saying, were chanting, Jews will not replace us. For Christ's sake, why in the hell couldn't the man just say that statements like that against Jewish community are wrong? Well, he couldn't. He had to try and argue that there had to be bad people on the other side, making the whatever was happening on the left was as bad as what these anti-Semites were doing on the right. And that was the issue in all of this, and it's appalling, I think, that this should be dragged up again by this stupid and bizarre woman, Rita. But what I also wanted to play for you was this idea that I was surprised about this because a guy made a comment to me on my YouTube channel when I was discussing this earlier on, and he was right, because I fact checked him, and the quote that he gives me is from Rita Panahi's Wikipedia page, and it was it's interesting, when I looked at her Wikipedia page, there wasn't it was very bitty. It wasn't a great deal actually about her. It was bits about where she came from and her religious beliefs. She's an atheist. Who cares? But it wasn't full of all that much. But this is the comment that he made, and I'll bring this up for you to look at. I think I might do that here. So, and I thank Steve for this. Don't think he's necessarily a supporter of mine, but nevertheless, I do need to say that I think that it was important for people to make comments and for me to respond to them where possible, providing that they're reasonable. And Steve says, just to offer some balance to your assessment of Rita Panahi and her economic credentials. She says of herself, I'm not your plastic conservative, ethic and migrant. I'll just try and... migrant and atheist. I'm a single mum, and from a bio of her, it says that she began working in a banking while studying in a bachelor's degree, finance at Monash University. She was a fan then of the then Prime Minister and joined Young Labour, working as a campaign volunteer in 1996, then became the youngest branch member of Colonial Mutual ever had, and into corporate banking with the Commonwealth Bank, and there's some other stuff also about her. And I thank Steve for that clarification, because the reason why it is important is that we all come from, as we grow up, a certain background that generally determines how we think and how we feel and how we respond around the world. And when thinking about this myself, it's the first time I've probably ever spoken about this, but I also was a member of the Liberal Party, and in my mid-30s, I even attempted to stand for a Liberal Party seat, primarily because I think I wanted to impress my father, who was also had been a Liberal candidate on a number of occasions for seats and wasn't successful, was mayor of a local council for many, many years, and very politically and community involved. And I think I wanted to impress him. It wasn't until I went to university that I decided that perhaps the way I'd been thinking and interpreting the world were not in keeping with my true set of values and principles. And so I started to see the world differently, started to see it as a progressive, and certainly started to support the Labor Party or progressive policies in particular, including the Greens. So we all tend to make a change as we progress through life. Rita, interestingly enough, has made a significant change from supporting Labor now to being progressive, to being on the extreme right of politics. She's a single mum, so clearly any policies in relation to single parents she'd probably support. But she has this continual negative approach towards anything that is Joe Biden or anything that's in the Republican politics, and particularly anything that is directed against the Labor Party. So here in Australia, so she is extremely right wing. So this conversion has taken place for her, which I can understand, because I had experienced some sort of conversion myself, which didn't take all that long. Once I went to university, kind of got the idea that I need to be socially progressive because that's what social workers do. And I certainly felt that those values fitted with me. And I had to dispense with what were all my parents' values in relation to all of that. So it is an interesting process, I think, this conversion process. And it fascinates me that someone like Rita would make this extreme turn. And I think one of the reasons why this happens is that Rita has been handed an opportunity to make an issue of almost everything, so that she can inflate her own sense of self-importance and that she can become, in her view, relevant. And so this is how that she's done it. Now, I have a YouTube channel that has 1,300 subscribers, for Christ's sake. I'm not all that relevant. But I do have a vehicle by which I can talk about the things that matter to me. So Rita clearly has the same. So it's just interesting, this sense of conversion. And it's also interesting how their attacks are incessant around the smallest, minutest things without really looking at the overarching issues. So when we're looking at Donald Trump, for example, we'll find that I think some of the things he said, I actually had a transcript of that press conference, and there were some things in there that Donald Trump said that I thought were incredibly reasonable in relation to how we view people. In part of that statement, I'll just see if I can bring it up here. He says, but we're closely following the terrible events unfolding in Charlottesville. We condemn the strongest possible terms this egregious display of hatred, bigotry and violence on many sides. And that was part of the issue where whether there was that happening on the other side was open for debate. And that's what the contentious issue is. It's been going on for a long time in our country. Not Donald Trump, not Barack Obama. This has been going on for a long, long time. It has no place in America. What is vital now is a swift restoration of law and order and the protection of innocent lives. No citizen should ever fear for their safety and security in our society, and no child should ever be afraid to go outside and play or be with their parents and have a good time. Now, that was Donald Trump back in 2017, I think. Those values, some of those values, even though that issue around that there were bigotry and violence on many sides, even though that statement is unhelpful and that's what has been picked up on, the other stuff he says about law and order and that no child should ever be afraid to go outside and play or be with their parents and have a good time are good values. So what in the hell has happened to them? It amazes me, it surprises me that there's been this incredible turnaround from someone being able to say what appears to be sensible and reasonable things, moral and ethical things, to someone who just displays no ethics or principles whatsoever. So let me know what you think in terms of that conversion stuff. If you had a moment where you've decided that things, that the way you've been thinking aren't correct, no longer fit your values, and you want to change, as I and Rita clearly have, we have that in common. And whether or not you think that some of the statements that Donald Trump has made have been reasonable, because I think some of them have been, as is evidenced by what I've just shown you. But there again, like Rita, the values that she used to have been wasted, they've gone, they've vanished, they've evaporated. And the same has happened with Donald Trump. Not that there's an equivalent assessment of both of these two people, but it is about how we change our views, how things change in our lives, and how we have a different sense of what is right and what is wrong. So let me know what you think. Remember to subscribe to my channel and ring the bell for further notifications. In the meantime, take care, look after yourselves, and more importantly, be safe.